Welcome, North Shoreans. This is the first inaugural North Shore Now. This is your news report. This belongs to you. This is all about the North Shore. There's a lot goes on the North Shore that many people don't know about. We're going to bring you this on a weekly basis if we can get the resources to do it. Now, we're bringing this to you for free. We're investing a lot of time and effort just for you for nothing. But there's some really interesting stuff goes on. We got 3 interesting stories for you today. First one is about some houses being demolished on the Northcote. It's tragic circumstances. Watch intently. The next one is, do we need all the golf courses we got on the North Shore? Yeah, controversial. It's an interesting subject. So we'll bring that to you. And were you aware of all the pollution going on in our beaches? Well, the third story will tell you a bit more. So I hope you enjoy it. Here's the first story about a tragic circumstances which has just unfolded in the last few days in regards to people up on Northcote Point.
We all recall the powerful cycle lobby groups' demand for cycle and walking paths across Auckland's Harbour Bridge. Many said the Skypath design was unsafe though, because cyclists bragged they could reach speeds of 70 km an hour downhill, facing prams and mobility scooters coming towards them, on the narrow 4-metre wide corridor. There was no access for emergency responders such as ambulance or police, and it was quite expensive at $33 million. In response, NZTA have redesigned a 5-metre wide path. However, the details are being withheld from the public, except that the northern exit will go further than Northcote Point, deeper into the North Shore. Oh, and the price is now $360 million. NZTA released this proposal as we were entering into the COVID-19 crisis. And little has been said in the media. Submissions closed on April 19th, and if you missed it, it's understandable as the media have been so preoccupied with COVID-19. Meanwhile, in the leafy and quiet suburb of Northcote, where the original concerns emerged due to hundreds of cars and people that were expected with the original Skypath design, are still concerned. On an initial glance, the new design looks good for Northcote Point, as the cycle and walking path continues beyond their back doors and deep into North Shore. But closer scrutiny shows another off-ramp coming off the cycle and walking path down to the underside of the Harbour Bridge, where a Northcote Point resident lives. We called Rod and Carol Brown, who live under the bridge, to understand what impact this would have on them.
About an hour before the phone call, they sent through a sketch of the planned on-off ramp from the path, which is the cause of all of our houses being demolished.
For the purpose of a ramp. So the northern pathway continues now. The old sky path that you can refer to was a design that landed and terminated on the North Shore at Stokes's Point under the Harbour Bridge. The new design that NZTA picked up and that they released publicly, I guess in around about mid-February, carries on the northern pathway, as it's now called, right through to Esmond Road, through to Takapuna.
And look, I've only just heard this from you, but certainly what doesn't make sense to me is the population density where you live is very sparse. There's not many people up there, but the population density will be coming from the North Shore, is part of 1 million people sitting on the North Shore that will access it from the bottom area. Who's going to use the ramp near your place?
We don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know.
How many houses to be affected? Is yours the only house?
No, there's 6 of them.
So your house and 6 of your neighbours are going to be demolished?
Correct. Which means that all of the houses on this little stretch of land will be gone. And we think it's entirely unnecessary.
We're in a historic heritage overlay, a special character overlay on this area. And there's a reason for that, because there are some beautiful villas and, with history. And there's a good reason for that you can't just turn around and alter those, without going through an approval process and the resource management process. And suddenly it just is beyond belief that they can turn around and just demolish those for a ramp when there are other alternatives to get people safely and effectively down from the, as Rod said, about a 3.5, 3.6 at best height above land. It's just beyond belief.
Is this a fait accompli? Is the decision finished, or is this consultation?
The phone call to us, that they had sent us this sketch of the ramp, and it was said quite categorically to us, this is it, there will be no arguments, this is what we're taking to the resource consent, without us ever having seen it or had any input into it whatsoever.
They made it very, very clear that they were not seeking feedback or that they would not be changing the design on the ramp here.
The consultation document for the entire project, in the little notes regarding this off-ramp here, it says something along the lines of, some houses will be impacted and one Pahutakawa tree will have to be removed. So from our point of view, that is such an insult when they're demolishing all these homes to put us into the same paragraph as one Pahutakawa tree, and it borders on dishonesty.
We have heard from Carolyn and Ron Brown in regards to them having received a phone call informing them that their home, after 35 years, will be forcibly taken off them and destroyed. It's not just their family home, it's an old historic building that is deemed to be treasured by New Zealand authorities that needed to be protected. However, it seems NZTA have the power to override people's rights to home ownership and override historic values in preference for a cycle and walking path. The news was a complete shock to the Browns, as they informed us there was no consultation, and they were told the decision was final. Their home would be forcibly taken off them and destroyed. We then raised the issue with Northcote's Member of Parliament, Dan Bedos.
And just want to start out by acknowledging Rod and Carol's concerns. It's not nice to be told after 35 years that your house is going to be acquired mandatory for this project. So certainly just want to acknowledge them and the other owners of those properties down there as well.
We asked the Northcote elected MP if he felt the ramp was necessary.
And I would say that it is worth having an access around Northcote Point so that local residents can actually access the point. So then the next question becomes, well, where do you put it? And in the Northcote Point right at the end is the natural place to put it. The thing is, and this is something we have to work through the NZTA about, is that there are several different types of ramps, and some of them actually mean that all of the houses need to be bowled over and acquired, but then there are other options for ramps that require no houses to be bowled over. So I haven't met with NZTA yet, but I would want them to consider actually other alternatives so that these homes don't have to actually be acquired.
In your view, did NZTA undertake proper consultation with the Browns before it made its final decision?
NZTA contacted the homeowners of the affected properties 2 days into lockdown to say that your house will be acquired under the Public Works Act. And quite frankly, that to me is smacks of a lack of empathy from NZTA that they go about that process 2 days into lockdown. The second thing is just the way they've approached this, where they haven't given the owners a sense of, I quoted this in the media, they've made the owners of these properties feel like crap, quite frankly.
What should have NZTA done?
You would hope that NZTA engages with these affected owners in good faith and not making them feel like crap in the process. And I've asked them to delay that consultation process until after lockdown, because I don't think it's fair for people who are home, stuck in their homes. People are actually, quite frankly, worried about their jobs, worried about their businesses at the moment. The last thing that is on their minds is what the specifics of this project looks like.
Well, there you have it, folks. A very tragic situation for the Browns. Let's hope Northcote's elected Member of Parliament, Dan Bedos, will be able to persuade NZTA to take a more compassionate and considered approach to this issue. If you want to share your views in regards to this matter, post them below.
Well, wasn't that a tragic circumstances for those people? Yes, there are always people that will suffer during progression of our society. But is this necessary? I mean, the total cost of the Sky Path was something like $30 million. To make this ramp, I estimate it'll cost us going to be about $10 million. No, $20 million just for that one ramp. Is it necessary? Could there be a stairway for people to walk down? Or is the ramp just there for the cyclists to not have to get off their push bikes and go up and down? So, these things need to be considered really, really closely. There are, sure, people's pleasure is important, but is it that important that we have to sacrifice 7 family homes? Something worth thinking about. Look, we want your comments. We want your criticisms. We want you to come back with your views. So please, at the bottom, tell us how you feel about that. I think it's going to be significant. Now, currently right now, we're building platforms for our North Shore Now. So we're going to have a Facebook page dedicated to North Shore Now. We're going to have a YouTube channel just for your North Shore Now and a website. These will be available hopefully next week. So in the meantime, you can go to Max Whitehead's Facebook page and give your criticisms and comments. Okay, well, with the next story. Wow, this is another controversial one and another one that the North Shore people need to think about. We have got a myriad of golf courses available to people on the North Shore. 8 within an hour's drive. 4, I think it's even 5, within the proximity of the North Shore. Do we need them? Wow, this is a hard question, and this is controversial. Is there enough people in our population using golf courses? Well, again, should the majority rule or should the minority rule? We have to ask these questions. Watch this.
Golf. It certainly is part of the North Shore. We got Lydia Cove, who just comes from the North Shore, a world champion. We should be so proud of her. We are certainly lucky living in the North Shore. Not only do we have ready access to Auckland's facilities, but we also have the natural beauty of some of New Zealand's best beaches. Then, embedded right in the middle of our society, we have some wonderful parks and reserves. North Shore people have ready access to probably 8 golf courses in less than an hour's drive, with at least 4 right within the North Shore. Do we need that many? Well, let's have a closer look into this. Currently we are living in a society which is running out of housing. We've got congested traffic, and now our council and our government have limited funds. Only this week did the Auckland Mayor Phil Goff say this.
If we suffer, as we undoubtedly will, as every business in New Zealand will, a significant drop in our revenue, our ability to fund capital projects will go down sharply.
That's right, our council's running out of money. They own most of the golf courses. They lease them out. We are currently in the midst of a 4-week lockdown, but we're allowed in our neighbourhood to wander around our parks and reserves. I took advantage of this and walked on our local golf course, and I've never seen so many people out enjoying the beautiful golf course. Never have they been able to wander freely over the golf course without the fear of a golf ball striking them down. Clearly, people were loving it, which begs the questions. Is all this prime land being used for the best purposes of the ratepayers? Are our residents having ready access to these beautiful reserves? And the big question, does the North Shore have too many golf courses? Only a few months ago, Auckland Council received a plan regarding golf courses, and its executive summary said this. Auckland is growing and going through a rapid period of transformation. With more people and increasing diversity, there is an increased demand for land, including parks and open spaces. Patterns of rates and participation in sport and recreation are changing. The time that people can allocate to sport and modern life may be limited. Golf is both time and land intensive. Fewer people are able to spend 4 hours playing a round of 18 holes. Auckland Council is the largest investor in golf through its land assets. However, the participation rates for other activities is much higher. For example, walking, 52%, cycling, 27%, golf, just 8.6%. Do we have too many golf courses on the North Shore? That's a question for us all to face. And here's what one resident had to say.
We should do like a wall in the middle and then make half a biking area and half a golfing area. So then like if someone hits a golf ball, it doesn't go like flying into the other side, and then people can like bike and they don't have to like go in the way of people golfing. So there's like a place for people to ride also.
Well, there you have it, folks. The voice of the next generation. This is what they want. What do you want? What do you think we should happen? Could we sacrifice a golf course or two? Or perhaps we could narrow the size of golf courses, whatever it needs. But do you think that our society is getting full use of this huge amount of space? I'd like to hear from you. Please leave your comments below or just email us. Well, we would like to hear what you have to say. And tell you what, we'll pass it on to those who count.
And don't you just love that little fella's point of view? Yeah, and maybe it does reflect on how other people feel about the amount of golf courses we've got on the North Shore. Yep, I mean, sharing them, maybe not. Maybe we could do away with one or two. Who knows? That's something I would like to hear your views again. Please put them below, send them to us. If criticisms, your views, anything at all. This channel belongs to you. This is your publication. Now wait, where the next story is very interesting too. Now we've all known for a long time this, but there is some pollution from time to time in our oceans and coming down our streams. But did you know it's getting worse and worse? Did you know that in fact the council have been working on this forever? I just saw a publication only yesterday. It said that in 1997 they made big promises to fix it all. And then 2002, they actually got a program together to spend $250 million. What's happened? We've still got pollution. But how bad is it? Take a look at this.
The beautiful North Shore. What makes the North Shore stand out from the rest of Auckland? Well, no one can argue this. It's its beautiful, pristine beaches. Immaculate. Unfortunately, what we think is paradise is only a superficial curtain, as lurking in those clean waters are nasty beasts. Scientists have detected dangerous levels of contaminants, including sediment, hydrocarbons, heavy metals, zinc, copper, littered debris, and wait for it, human waste. That's right, human poos and wees are flowing down this beautiful little stream and out into our oceans, causing all these pollutants to put our lives in danger. I understand these heavy metals are, wait for it, are carcinogenic. Yes, we could end up having cancer. I asked a scientist recently, would he let his children play on the beach of Milford and around the outlet of the Wairua Creek? He said never by the outlet of the Wairua Creek, but he would if they went into deeper waters and if they stayed right away from that creek. This problem is not new to the North Shore. Generations have worried about the pollution. One can only guess that it's got worse with the intensity of the population. A lot of questions come to mind. Should we stop swimming at all on the North Shore? Is our drinking water contaminated? What's Auckland Council doing about it? And what's our government doing about it? Well, it came to our attention that there was a public meeting being called to discuss just this factor. So on the 10th of August 2019, we went along to see what they had to say. Emma Wilmore from Patel, Delmore and Partners spoke mostly about the impacts of the estuary on wildlife, while Nick Vega from Auckland Council spoke mostly about contaminants like human feces. While there was an acknowledgement they were aware there were other contaminants, there seems to be no monitoring of it. So rather than rely on anecdotal evidence, we went to an expert, Dr. Seddon. We asked Dr. Seddon if he's qualified upon which to answer these questions.
I'm an environmental scientist working at AUT in the Built Environment Engineering Department.
I asked Dr. Seddon whether the North Shore pollution problem was a real one. Should we worry about it?
This is a real and ongoing issue. It's been an issue since right back in the 1960s when we started having problems in the Wairau Valley over flooding, and now the solution at that time was to put in a concrete channel, which meant that the water just flushed out into the marina area and out into the sea. As a result of that, we're finding that the sewage that's being carried through in the stormwater is ending up on our beaches and affecting all of those who are swimming there. We need to have this aging infrastructure upgraded, modernised, and separation of stormwater and sewage. The sewage should be going to the sewage treatment plant, and it should only be clean water that's going into the ocean. It is a complex problem on the shore because we've got two very big issues. One is the sewage, and the other one is the amount of heavy metals that are being brought down the Wairau Creek. So the complexity is fairly great.
We asked, what are heavy metals?
The heavy metals are things like copper, zinc, lead, tin, and these are metals that are dissolved in the water, and they will come down in sedimentation. They'll also be carried out to sea. The difficulty with heavy metals is that they are long-term pollutants. So you ingest a little bit today and you ingest more the next day, and it builds up over time. And what's been found is that with many of these heavy metals, you get things like central nervous system damage, kidney failure, liver problems, as well as some of them being cancer-causing elements, yes. And on top of the heavy metals, we also have hydrocarbons. So the stuff from oil, petrol coming down there, and those are known carcinogens. If you're swimming amongst the small concentrations, it's probably not causing a problem. But where it causes a problem is where you get sediments, which is what you get around the marina area. And those sediments there have got metals in quite high concentrations.
We asked Dr. Seddon what's needed to fix this problem.
Well, certainly with the sewage, what needs to happen is that all those connections that are putting sewage into the stormwater need to be diverted. And council are starting to do that in some parts of Auckland. They haven't yet started around the Wairau Creek. The first step is to stop them getting into the creek as much as possible. So there we have things like swales on the roadside. We have stormwater retention ponds, but they still need to be cleaned out. And if possible, slow down the speed of the water flowing down the Wairau Valley. Link Road there, you've got stormwater retention ponds. You've also got grassed areas next to them that will capture some of the material coming through. Well, that's working quite well. It needs to be cleaned out every now and again, but that picks up the stuff from the top end of the catchment. We've still got the whole major part of the Wairau Valley. Well, real swamps are a part of the low impact urban design areas, and those are the ones that work best. The water coming through in flash floods, that was solved by putting concrete channels in, which just moved the sediment right down to the bottom of the creek and the marina. This just is an increasing problem, and the longer that the council does nothing, the bigger the problem becomes.
We asked Dr. Seddon, what were the risks to the people?
In the short term, risk of sickness. You can get viruses, you can get bacteria, you can get parasites from swimming in polluted water, and particularly from sewage polluted water. And the results of that, you get sick, you can have diarrhea. In the United States, of the people who get sick from sewage, about 7% of them die each year.
Dr. Seddon's wife, Labitza Seddon, has a doctorate in environmental planning.
Wairau Creek area in particular is constantly polluted. It is the only spot on the shore that has constant red flag. So you can't swim in the Wairau estuary, whereas you can swim on the beach, particularly further from the estuary, but you do have to be careful and monitor safe swim maps. I believe that, you know, this is the first world country, so we shouldn't tolerate certain levels of pollution that perhaps some other country have to tolerate, and particularly having in mind that these are recreational beaches, and the council has established that there are some illegal connections and other sources of grey water or black water going directly, so untreated water going directly into the sea. And there's ample evidence all over the world that it causes health problems. Well, I certainly believe that both the Devonport-Takapuna Local Board and the Council need to pay serious attention to water quality on North Shore beaches and the Wairau Creek in particular, and it has to happen right now. We really need champions, and hence a message to the Devonport-Takapuna Board, be our champions.
Well, we've seen a lot today. If you reflect back on the first program, it was about those tragic circumstances, those individuals up at Northcote who are getting their house taken off them and they're going to have to watch them get demolished. 35 years of living in a beautiful, beautiful home. Yep, and a historic home as well. Then we've talked about the golf courses. Do we need that many golf courses on the North Shore? It's all about the North Shore. North Shore now. And of course, you've just seen our last story. Why are we putting up with pollution? What's it about the North Shore? We've got one of the best locations in Auckland, and it's all about our beaches. But they're polluted. What's our council doing? Zig, nothing. Ideal opportunity now is to get some big projects done, and this will help get us over the covert economic downturn. All right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed North Shore Now for today. This is coming to you live for our first edition. So if you want more, let me know, because we're going to have to invest a bit more money and time and actually bringing you this free show for your benefit. This is your show. Please let us know if you want more. For that, folks, if you've got some criticism, comments, anything at all, it's helpful, or if not, even criticisms, we don't mind. Bring it on. Just put them below. So we'll see you next week.